over the last couple of days while I was out, Hunter Biden was convicted in his gun case in Wilmington, Delaware. That did buck my expectations. I thought that because it was Wilmington, Delaware, there was a fairly decent shot there'd be a hung jury. That didn't happen because the charges apparently were so clear and so convincing that there really was no defense for Hunter Biden to present. He did try the old, I wasn't high on the day I signed the affidavit form that said that I wasn't a drug addict defense, which is a weird defense. So basically it says on the form, are you a drug user? And he wrote no. And then he tried to claim in court, despite the fact that he was snorting Parmesan cheese off the carpets, he tried to claim he meant not that day, which again is awesome. Because if it says, are you a murderer? And O.J. Simpson writes no, presumably he means more than not that day. But, okay, in any case, he was found guilty on Tuesday of falsely claiming to be drug-free when he applied to buy his handgun 6 years ago. So he's convicted on 3 felony counts by a federal jury. As he departed the courtroom, he smiled and embraced his Lori Abby Lowell and the members of his defense team. He faces up to 25 years behind bars, although any prison term is likely to amount to a fraction of that minimum sentence. Apparently, they're sentencing Hunter about 4 months after this conviction, so it will be prior to the election. It's expected that it'll be a very light sentence at best. The White House, Joe Biden, did say that he would not actually pardon Hunter. However, the White House did not rule out a commutation of his sentence. So here's the White House saying as much.
He has said that he has ruled out pardoning his son, but I wondered about a commutation, whether that would be something that would be on the table. A commutation?
What I will say is, look, I haven't spoken to the president about this since the verdict came out. And as we all know, the sentencing hasn't even been scheduled yet. But you saw the president do an interview just last week when he was in Normandy, and he was asked, a question, several questions, a couple questions about this, and he was very clear, very upfront, very obviously very definitive, and I just don't have anything. You have his own words. I just don't have anything beyond that.
So again, that is not a no on the commutation of the sentence. Now, the reality is the gun charges are secondary to the tax charges. The tax charges are the ones that are interesting against Hunter Biden because that implicates his entire sphere of corrupt influence that he built around Joe Biden. Joe Biden used his son as a bagman on behalf of the family, allowed his son to traffic in his name while he was sitting in the Senate, while he was vice president of the United States, all around the world. Hunter was deployed to China. He was deployed to Ukraine to sit on boards that he had no business sitting on, picking up millions of dollars from a variety of corrupt enterprises, including ones that were fronts for the Chinese government. And Joe Biden simply allowed that, and every so often would pipe in with a phone call just to demonstrate that Hunter had influence with dad. Lawyer John Yoo, who of course was a lawyer in the Bush administration, he says if Donald Trump wins, it wouldn't be a great surprise if DAs looked into Biden influence peddling.
What other avenues or areas do you think Republican DAs or prosecutors could legitimately do in order to get accountability?
Well, one thing they can look at is influence peddling beyond just the Biden family. Are there other Democratic politicians who engage in the same kind of conduct? They get their brothers hired, their sisters hired, their kids hired by foreign governments, foreign corporations, or even U.S. corporations, and then, try to help those companies out. Look, the Justice Department actually goes after a lot of American companies when they do exactly the same thing abroad. If you were an Exxon and you hired, say, the son of the head of Saudi Arabia, you will be prosecuted like that.
Yeah.
So why can't Republican DAs do the same thing here in the United States? And look, I don't want this norm to have been broken. I wish we were not using the criminal justice system to interfere in politics. But how else could you deter Democratic DAs from doing the same thing? If you don't, they're just going to keep doing it and doing it worse and worse.
He, of course, is right about all of that. As social unrest escalates and crime rates climb, securing the safety of our family is more crucial than ever. In these uncertain times, having effective but non-lethal options is really, really vital. Introducing the Burna less lethal pistol launcher developed by a team of common sense gun owners who understand the importance of having choices. They engineered the Burna launcher as a powerful tool for self-defense, allowing users to de-escalate threatening situations without having to resort to deadly force and all of the attendant legal issues that come along with it and all of the rest of it. For many responsible gun owners, the thought of using lethal force is daunting. It has emotional and legal consequences. The Burna offers a safer, sensible alternative, potentially saving lives on both sides, protecting both the user and the aggressor. For those who are adverse to owning a firearm, the Burna is the optimal choice. It delivers formidable stopping power without having to take a life. I've used it myself. It's a very, very cool thing. And not only that, it can be an amazingly useful item in, God forbid, a case of self-defense. In today's unpredictable environment, the Burna is an indispensable tool to keep you and your family safe. It's legal in all 50 states, no background checks or permits required. Over 15,000 4.5-star reviews. They can ship directly to your door. The Burna isn't just an option, it's an essential component of responsible non-lethal protection. Visit Burna.com/Ben. Get 10% off your purchase today. That's BYRNA.com/Ben. And check out the latest news about Burna. That's BYRNA. Speaking of the abuse of the Justice Department's legal authority, they're jailing Steve Bannon. Again, I'm not a fan of Steve Bannon on a personal level, but they're jailing him for contempt of Congress, which is absolutely insane. This means there are now 2 Trump officials who have been put in jail or will be jailed for contempt of Congress, which is a meaningless charge. It just means you didn't show up for a subpoena when Congress subpoenaed you. Peter Navarro has already gone to jail in Florida. Steve Bannon has now been sentenced to jail, and that sentence has been confirmed by a judge. Meanwhile, Merrick Garland was held in contempt by the House on Wednesday afternoon. According to Mediaite, Republican lawmakers voted to hold the Attorney General in contempt after he defied a congressional subpoena demanding the DOJ turn over that audio recording of Robert Hur interviewing Joe Biden. Remember, there is no reason to deny that recording getting into Congress's hands. We already have the transcripts. We know exactly what Joe Biden said. It's just that we want to hear how he said it. How long was he pausing between words? Was he stumbling over himself? Was he falling asleep and drooling and or vomiting in his own mouth? Like, what exactly was happening? And apparently, the DOJ and Merrick Garland, we're not turning that over. So the House Republicans held him in contempt. Immediately upon which, Garland came out and said that this is, in fact, a partisan weapon. He quoted, "It is deeply disappointing this House of Representatives has turned a serious congressional authority into a partisan weapon. Today's vote disregards the constitutional separation of powers, the Justice Department's need to protect its investigations, and the substantial amount of information we've provided to the committees. I will always stand up for this department, its employees, and its vital mission to defend our democracy." And I'm so tired of hearing defend our democracy from people who consistently undermine the democracy. It really is tiresome at a very high level. I love that he's saying that that's a partisan weapon. The contempt, but not when you actually jail 2 members of Trump's team for contempt. Merrick Garland then said that Merrick Garland could not be prosecuted. So it's always convenient when you are asked to prosecute yourself and you're like, you know what? I have found that I am not prosecutable. That's always pretty convenient. Apparently, a 57-page memo from the department's Office of Legal Counsel lays out the case for Garland's refusal to turn over the audio. And they're saying that there is no prosecution that will be forthcoming. So Merrick Garland has exonerated Merrick Garland, which is excellent news if you are Merrick Garland. Speaking of undermining America's institutions, even as they claim that it's Republicans who are undermining the institutions, Democrats continue to pretend that every Republican appointee on the Supreme Court is deeply corrupt. They tried this with Clarence Thomas because Clarence Thomas has rich friends and sometimes goes on vacations paid for by them, which I hate to break it to you, it happens a lot in America. It turns out that a lot of people pay for each other's vacations in the United States. I've done it with members of my family. I've done it with friends, actually. Like, it's not all that rare. But that apparently was deeply corrupting and terrible and all of the rest. It's nonsense. Then they tried to go after Samuel Alito for flying a series of flags. Apparently his wife put out a flag that was like an upside down American flag. They claimed that had to do with January 6th. No evidence that it did. Then he put up, and his wife put up at their vacation home, some sort of Revolutionary era flag that has been part of political protest for a couple hundred years in the United States. And that was then considered a wild and egregious, terrible thing. So now you have Democrats attacking Justice Alito and suggesting that he doesn't belong on the Supreme Court. Here is Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, a person who we are supposed to believe deeply loves American institutions, going after the Supreme Court yet again.
Justice Alito's position is laughable in this idea that he can be and that the court should be accountable to nobody and that the only person that they should be accountable to are themselves. This kind of Scout's promise sort of set up for how we should be having ethics standards for the highest and most consequential court in the land. It is completely unacceptable. And not only is it unacceptable, but to have any one of our co-equal branches be completely unaccountable to the others is paving the path to authoritarianism, tyranny, the abuse of power in the United States. And it is structurally completely unsustainable.
I mean, it would be really terrible if a public official accepted gifts without reporting those gifts. Like, say, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez accepting gifts at the 2021 Met Gala. Like, that would be absolutely impermissible and terrible. And all these people preaching about democracy, it's just like, come on. Do I believe that AOC is deeply concerned about the status of America's institutions, or is she just attempting to undermine those same institutions that she is supposedly standing in favor of? Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, Me too. Join me in my newest series, Facts, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.